Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So today I got a super fun and super exciting episode for you guys today because I'm taking a look at the recently retranslated Metalgun Slinger on the Game Boy Advance. And just so you know, this game was translated earlier this spring, but another translator by the name of RDCB went through and retranslated all of the text to apparently be more conversational and make more sense. Now, I didn't play the original translation. I will say Metalgun Slinger here in its English language version, absolutely straight up awesome. It is a super fun game and one that I expect most people probably never played on Game Boy Advance. Before I get far involved though, do me a huge favor, down below hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But you're probably thinking to yourself, if you've never played this game before, it certainly seems like the type of genre that you should be able to play without understanding any of the text. And that is absolutely true, because if you played a run and gun game before, you're going to know exactly what Metalgun Slinger has to offer, and you're going to be able to play the game from start to finish with no issues as far as the mechanics are concerned. But surprisingly, for a game in the run and gun genre, this one has an absolute metric crap ton of story throughout it. All of the reasons that you're actually doing anything in the game are going to be fully explained to you now in English. So it's one of those things, the story in this game way more engrossing and way deeper than you would expect out of a Game Boy Advance run and gun game, and the story is quite good and effective. There's a lot of fun characters, a lot of different personalities and motivations that now you can 100% understand, where before, unless you could read Japanese, it would be completely in the dark to you. And you know I always have time for fun translation on the channels, especially when they're in what I would be considering a hidden gem game. Now, I'm not saying Metalgun Slinger is perfect. It's probably like an 8.5 out of 10, but honestly, it's one of those games. When this come to the West, I think a lot of people would fondly remember it and really want to keep playing it. And that is the great thing about ROM hacks and translations. It brings an entirely new audience to a game. Because trust me, I will show you some story beats here. There is way more text in this title than you would expect for any sort of mobile title outside of an RPG. And I absolutely do love all the character motivations and their weird quirky personalities. And of course you need that in English if you're going to be able to understand anything, because even understanding what's going on in the game and what gun you receive and why you get it is completely obscured unless you can read Japanese. And I will say this translation here is super effective. It conveys all of the emotion and all of the intent of the storyline without really changing up too much or trying to impart its own personality on top of things. And honestly, I just love the graphics in this game as well. It has an absolutely awesome Game Boy Advance aesthetic. Kind of feels a little bit like a bright, cheery run and gun Castlevania more than anything else. And you'll see here this owl's going to drop in this firearm that's going to be effective against the Black Pearl, the enemies you're fighting in the game. And now again, you know who the owl is, you know what he's given you, and soon you're going to find out who actually sent the owl to help you on your quest. Because this is one of those things, this game is just way richer when you can understand exactly what's going on in it. It just really goes to lend itself for you wanting to play the game more to find out what happens next. But as far as the actual gameplay is concerned, again, this one is just straight up fun in my opinion. And honestly, another fun run and gun game is definitely something we could all use. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me, have you ever played this game before, and have you ever even heard of it? Because I feel like it's actually going to surprise a decent amount of people. And that is always something fun on the channel when people discover a game they've never seen before. And at the same time, I can tell them it's been translated to English, so now they can enjoy it exactly like if it was an actual English language release back in the Game Boy Advance lifespan. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised this wasn't actually ported over to the West, because it does seem like the type of thing that would absolutely be kind of the vibe that people are going for here. But you'll see we're meeting the character of Doc, and we're trying to find another character in our party. And this owls are going to fly back in, and we're going to find out exactly who sent them and why they did it. And I would say that's maybe the most Japanese aesthetic female character right there. I don't know who makes those suits, but they definitely missed a little strip of fabric in the middle. But now you understand again why you're doing something in a game. The motivation to understand exactly why you're playing a game and what's going on within the story is huge here, and that's why translations like this super matter and are super important. It just brings these games to a wider audience and allows people to discover something that maybe they just never checked out before, because they thought to themselves, I don't really feel like playing a game if I can't understand it. But we're going to move into the first soundtrack sample here in the speeder bike section, and those are basically called steel horses, which are just hover motorcycles in this world. Definitely big Western themes going on. But go ahead and listen to the music, and I'll be right back with a lot more stuff. I mean, it's basically a sci-fi western mashup, and it 100% works as far as the theming is concerned. And you'll see here Sundance, definitely Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid themed, has converted into a monster, but again, if you didn't have English, you really wouldn't understand why. And that definitely adds an extra layer to the game that's just going to be fun. But like I said, mechanically, this game just absolutely is a hit. Trying to understand boss patterns here, trying to understand the firing patterns and rhythms of every enemy on screen is going to be challenging. I won't say that this game is the hardest thing I've ever played, definitely feels a little bit medium in the difficulty, but it is going to challenge you in later levels. And again, some of the boss fights here kind of feel a little bit like a rhythm game. You'll read the patterns, you'll move around the screen, and of course you are going to get some special moves as well. Kind of almost feels like Gun Kata from that one movie that I can't remember the title of now. So leave me a comment down below and let me know. And wait, was it Equalizer? Honestly, I'm trying to think of this at the top of my head and it's just not popping up. Whatever the name of that movie is, Metalgun Slinger definitely has that vibe, at least in the control scheme, and that definitely is a fun comparison to make. And again, these are the type of games I just love talking about on the channel, because I really do feel like most people have probably never encountered this one before, and they're definitely going to be engrossed when they actually start playing the game, because there are a ton of levels here, and it absolutely just has that Game Boy Advance aesthetic that I love. It's kind of like that if 32-bit consoles only ever had 2D, never had 3D like on the N64, even though technically that is 64-bit. I feel like this is what we would have been playing after Super Nintendo, had Nintendo just stuck to 2D as a home console. And that is why I've always loved the Game Boy Advance. Kind of felt like the next generation of 2D, and because basically almost all of the Game Boy Advance games are going to be in 2D, it really just hits for me. Just so you know, you can play this on Mr. FPGA, you can play it on real Game Boy Advance hardware, and you can play it on software emulation as well. But for my money, I love playing Game Boy Advance games on the couch on my Mr. FPGA, and if you don't have one via software emulation, because I just feel these games really do scale up well, especially on something like a 4K OLED like I have in the living room. There's just something about experiencing Game Boy Advance games on a much bigger screen that just absolutely makes the games feel transformative in some ways. And of course, now with some English you're going to be able to understand, you're going to get a hell of a lot more out of this one, and that is always making me happy. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me if there's one Game Boy Advance game you could just see translated today, snap your fingers and it existed, which one would it be? Because I always love asking that question. I get so many good recommendations in the comments, and I would say every once in a while someone names a game that I've never played before, and I end up checking it out. So don't think that just Video Game Esoterica tells you to go find games. You do tell me some games as well that I definitely want to check out in the future, and I find a lot of stuff. And that is always a good time, because honestly the Game Boy Advance library is quite rich, and it definitely has a decent amount of exclusive Japanese games. Let's do one more soundtrack sample, because again, I love the music in this one. 45 seconds, I'll be right back to show you another boss fight, because trust me, it's worth waiting around for. Not only is the music really good there, but I love just how dramatic the storytelling is here in this game. And again, now that you can understand the words on the screen, you're just going to get so much more for it. But you can tell the developers really love making this game and really wanted to give you as much story as possible, because again, for the run and gun genre, the detail, the lore, the storytelling here, absolutely denser than you would expect. And moving into this next boss fight, again, a lot of fun movement in this game. There's a lot of different tech, a lot of different attack patterns, reading the boss's actual patterns. You'll even see that we can go above the screen as well to try to basically keep ourselves safe. Though I will say you get a healthy amount of hit points here, so you're never in too much danger unless you want to dial the game's difficulty up. But take it from me, Metalgun Slinger, absolutely worth a playthrough, especially now that it's been retranslated. And I understand it was translated in the spring, but I talked to a few people that played back then on my Discord. They basically just said it was a good translation, but this one definitely they thought was better. Now, I appreciate all efforts. It's not one of those things. I don't like to compare fans' works, but it's just what I was told, so I definitely will leave that in the video. But this is what I really love about retro gaming, fans going out there and leaving these sort of things for everyone to enjoy, so not only can we play a really good Game Boy Advance hidden gem, but we can play it in a language we understand. The link to the patch is in the description below. Sure to that, we're done, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.